It just takes a few things that you love and you can make it go a long way. I basically kind of forced myself out of the box in 2017, 2018. So I'm mostly hardware. Didn't have a ton of gear, just had TR8S, and I bought this Prophet 6 as the nicest thing, the nicest synth. It's not cheap, but it's so versatile that I bought it, 2018, and I'm still using it on literally everything. And then it was the TR8 when I got it, and then I upgraded to TR8S, my TB03. And I used to have the BeatStep Pro, but now I have the KeyStep Pro. And, so I can write basically outside of the box, not look at a computer, just be over here to be creative. And then when I want to start maybe arranging things a little more intricately, I'll use Logic on my computer. I went with Logic because I didn't start with Logic. I think it was when I switched from PC to Mac that I ended up deciding to change to Logic, which was before Apple owned it. eMagic owned it. You needed a dongle to open it. And it was just what all my people were using. And then I just ended up falling. It just made sense to me because I look at Ableton and I understand why people love it. You can do the same thing with both programs. To me, it looks like it's not as intuitive for me, but I do use both programs. I use Ableton as well. And I'll probably have to use Ableton for live because that's literally what it was created for. It just makes sense for me with Logic. So I'm gonna stick with it. What I love about it is just being able to work in the DAW and say hey, I wanna send these vocals out that are dry in my DAW that I've recorded in, and I want it to go through my space pedal, just the beautiful reverb in my space pedal. It's just so easy to send it out through there and record it onto 2 other channels back into the DAW with this beautiful lush reverb. You can get all of that internal, but for me, I know what works for me. I've been using this Eventide space pedal since Creep days, which is we started that in 2008. So I've been using that for a long time. You don't need the most expensive, even this Cathedral reverb is beautiful reverb, and it has all the things, spring reverb, hall room. You don't need a ton of options, is what I'm saying, to get beautiful sounds. So, and the FX500, the Yamaha FX500, which is something I bought 15 years ago that's been sitting I've never even used it. I bought it and it was just sitting in a container for 15 years. And I bought it because it was what Slowdive was using on all their guitars for that wall of sound and, shoegaze sound. And I was yes, amazing. And then for some reason, I just never used it. I think because it was all crunchy, but then I just figured I'd pull it out, open it up, clean it out, and I got it working great. And now I send my Proteus strings through the FX500. Everything on my album for next year is all running through the FX500. So it just takes a few things that you love and you can make it go a long way. So you don't need a shit ton of gear and you can make things sound really rich and full. When I sequence, I'll use the Arturia KeyStep Pro because I have I can sequence my drum here on track 1 in 3 separate synthesizers, or the same synthesizer, 3 different channels of it. So I'll have my, my Prophet 6 on one channel, my Proteus 2 on another channel, and since this one doesn't do slides like the KeyStep, like the BeatStep does, I'll program just within the TB03. My acid lines and things like that. So that'll give me a flow, and then I can actually do my arrangements and do pattern chaining together so I can get an idea. And then I can actually record the MIDI out of here into my DAW with Logic and then make any changes more easily. It's a good way, I do both. Because sometimes I write the MIDI directly into my DAW and sometimes not. Just depends on what I need to look at. When I have it set, when I have all the notation set and I'm ready to go, then I will hit record and I will have the MIDI play out through the song and I will affect my machines with, my cutoffs and things like that, and the delays, so that that is recorded in my audio. But I just have to be ready, and have the MIDI set before I record the audio. And then once it's done, it's good. And then, I'll kick that MIDI onto different, different synths that I have, like maybe the Prophet 600, and see what it comes up with. But yeah, so I kind of just take it in steps and do it one by one. I'm basically creating sounds entirely from the Prophet 6 and now the 600 and just tactile. I'm not really using anything in the box unless it's just like a sub, like a pure sine wave sub that sounds beautiful, then I will put that in there. But for the most part, for the sounds that are unique to what I feel is my sound is from the Prophet 6. For the drums that I use, it really depends on if I'm, for dance stuff, everything is TR-8S. And I might, I've been throwing a lot of those old school drum loops and sampling a lot of the old school drum loops under that and chopping them up and putting my own stank on it. But it's mostly my own drums that are coming from the TR-8S. So I'll just, manipulate the drum, the actual sounds within that unit. But when it comes to my album, it was a lot of just sampling and chopping up drums. And that was really fun. And then we're gonna do all of that live with a real drummer. And there's 2 tracks, they're jungle tracks, and he's gonna do all that live too, so it should be really fun. When I'm chopping up the drums, I'll use Ableton. It's just the most superior piece of software you can use for this kind of thing, for manipulating audio like that. So I'll just load up, I buy tons of sample packs, loops, and things like that, and I'll just load it in and get them all synced up to a BPM so that I can just, you used to be able to rewire Logic with Ableton, but it's not actually available anymore, which is a huge bummer. So now I have to just kind of, test it out. But it's good to be able to just go into Ableton and switch up, have everything already loaded, change the BPM and have it work, export it and throw it into Logic. That's basically my process, which might be backwards for a lot of people, but I really like to do my editing and arranging in Logic. I'm actually just chopping it up, making sure it's locked to a grid, exporting it, putting it in Logic, and then just chopping it up and literally just moving the little pieces around until I find something that grooves and is unique and mine. I like the Roland G6 because the piano is not my best instrument. I will just try to make up chords as I go, and I do that a lot, but sometimes I really like to just kind of play around with actual chord structures, and this gives you so many options to just get your chords, and then you can put the MIDI in your computer from here, move the notes around if you need, but this is such a lifesaver to kind of kick off ideas with just the chords that you want. So I mean, it's not that expensive. I'm not sure what it goes for, and I think it has the Juno sounds in this one as well, which is really cool because I want to pick up the JU06 at some point. But yeah, I really like this. I think it's good for people that are like me who are not great at piano.
Relieve the safety and stability.
There is something that I do use, I think, on every track, and it is just the Logic tape delay. I do use the Logic tape delay on a lot of things. The 8th dotted dub, I think, and I've been using it forever, forever. It's just, I don't know, it's just the sound that feels fundamental to me, the triplet delay sound with the spring reverb. So I use a lot of that. And Isotope is really good for me, the Ozone 9 plugin for, especially the dance tracks that I'm doing, getting them ready for the dance floor. I'm not a good musician. I'm like a jack of all trades, master of nothing. I'm not really good at any one instrument. I play guitar on tracks. I have, the drums, I was playing the MPC on a lot of things, but now I've just moved towards programming all the drums. And this way, if I mess up, I can fix it. And luckily with Logic, you can quantize the MIDI, but if you have like a nice piano line or strings or things like that you don't want, quantized right to the beat, you want it to feel human or playing like the organ, and things like that. Luckily, the human eyes can just move things around a little bit, change the volumes a little bit so that it sounds more human as opposed to just like very robot, which is important for the type of music that I'm making. Like I do both dance music and more trip hop style stuff you listen to at home, not at the club type stuff. So